Hello and welcome to IBTimes TV. I'm Leanna Brinded, Business Editor for the International Business Times. Joining me now as a very special guest is Nancy McKinstry. She's the Chairman and CEO of Wolters Kluwer. So hi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You've recently just put out results and there were some key bright spots in terms of growth. But what other incumbent challenges are you finding in Europe at the moment?
Yeah, we're a global business. We have about 40% of our revenues coming out of the European countries. We're in 18 different countries, so of course every country has a bit of a unique situation. But I would say in general, we saw slightly better growth in Europe, meaning a less decline than we had in the prior year. So while Europe is still declining 2%, it was a little bit less than the prior year. And I would say that it's still, we're still taking a very cautious approach on Europe. We are really focused on putting more capital into the growing parts of the business there. So for us, that is tax and accounting software, financial services, corporate legal kinds of software products, et cetera. Those are really where the focus is up for us within Europe. And I think if you look at the whole, the 18 countries that we participate in, I would say the northern countries are doing better than the south at this point. But I still think it's again too early to say that things are going to improve. We're taking the view that 2013 it will continue to be challenging.
Okay, so when it comes to putting the cap onto more of the growing parts of the business, that must mean there is some form of restructuring in terms of the European side. So could you tell me a little bit more about how you're planning to prune the capital elsewhere to put into other businesses?
Yeah, we talk about sort of rebalancing the footprint, and so what does that mean? That means that we're putting new capital into the growth areas and driving product development in markets like tax and accounting. And conversely, we've gone through our entire product portfolio, and those products where we think that the future growth in the market is not going to be very attractive, either we're divesting those products or in some cases harvesting them. So meaning, really focusing on significant cost reduction on those particular products and then let them have sort of a natural decline. And so over time, by taking those actions, we believe the footprint that we have in Europe will be quite different in, say, 3 years' time from what it looks like today.
Well, looking at other areas of opportunities for growth, some of your rivals in the market have been actually trying to snap up other smaller companies to grow and expand those more successful parts of the business. Is there any form of M&A activity on the horizon or key areas that Wolters Kluwer is looking at?
Yeah, we have been altering our portfolio quite a bit over the last decade. We've sold almost 800 million euros worth of assets, and conversely, we've bought a little bit more than 800 million euros of assets. And it's been to really drive this transformation from a traditional publishing company to a provider of digital information and software. And today, 78% of our revenues come from online software and service. So that transformation occurred both because of organic investments, but also some of these bolt-on acquisitions. So our focus from an acquisition perspective is really around bolt-ons. We don't anticipate making anything that would be considered transformational. And we're really focused on where the business is growing and we have leading positions. So for example, if you look at the 3 companies we bought this year, one is in tax and accounting in Brazil, a company called ProSoft. We bought Health Language in clinical solutions, again, where we have a leading position and we've been growing very well. And the last company was Aventique, which is a small company in Europe around trademark services, again, a growing area of our portfolio. So acquisitions really a complement to organic growth and very much targeted in these higher growth markets.
Sure, and when it comes to looking at more bolt-ons, are there any in Asia that's particularly catching your eye, or is that an area that you are looking to expand more into?
Yeah, Asia is, particularly China, is an area of increased investment for us. We've been actually in China since 1985, so we've been there a long time, but the markets are really starting to develop at a more interesting rate in the last couple of years. So we've been investing primarily organically, but we did buy a company called Medicom last year that's in the drug database area. So we would potentially make additional acquisitions in China, but again, they would be relatively small and bolting on to activities that we already have there.
Okay, and are there any other regions or other, I suppose, other types of products that you are looking to bring into the company that may have not necessarily, that you've had presence in before?
Yeah, we tend to really focus on our core markets because what's going on in our core markets, if you take, an accountant or a physician, is, they've gone from using primarily printed material to online material, and now they're going from just online research into software and service kinds of products. So a lot of what we're doing is spending our capital and our time building tools that they can use to really improve their productivity. Because if you go out and you talk to any one of our customers, again, whether it's a lawyer, an accountant, a doctor, two things they talk about as being very significant issues for them. One is productivity. All of them are being asked to do more work with fewer resources. So the pressure on them to produce is very significant. So they need to change the way that they're working. And they need to do that through, again, workflow tools, which is why we've moved very much into building software for our customers. And then the second thing they talk about is they're just bombarded with information. And, I've had doctors explain to me how patients will come in with, this much information they've printed off from the web. And of course, not all of that is relevant or even accurate. So they need a lot of help getting to answers and ensuring that the answers that they get are accurate. And so that's a big part of what we help our customers do, is this ability through technology to filter information and, more importantly, really push out the right answer, give them the insight that they need to do their job. So as a result of that kind of dynamic going on in our business, much more of what we're doing is, again, this organic development of the kind of workflow tools that will help them deal with too much information and get their productivity up.
Well, do you see maybe in 2014 or 15, I know we talked about in terms of economic recovery, it's still a bit too early to predict when it will really get back to the way it was. But with the regulatory changes happening around the world, whether it's the US, EU, and even in China when it comes to pharmaceuticals, there's so many regulatory changes that it will force people to look at their business practices and take on these products. Do you see there being a special, I suppose, boom time for uptake in these kind of products and sales?
Yeah, I do think that certainly one of the drivers of our business is we're probably one of the few companies that would ever tell you that we like regulation, right? Because regulation very much drives our business. So any increase in compliance or regulations or even just in information in general is a positive trend for our business. So we do see two trends. One is not just the volume of regulation going up, but the complexity is really significant now. So we see that as one of our missions, is to help our customers kind of navigate that. I would say clearly, again, as these trends continue, that will have a positive effect on the business. There are a couple of major, forms of regulation in financial services. It's around Basel III. In tax and accounting, there's some new changes going on in both the U.S. and in some European countries that could be significant. But it's really what I think is kind of interesting is that it's really kind of a pattern of first you have to get regulation, but then you have to have compliance. Yeah. So sometimes you think something's going to be a major piece of regulation, but unless there's a lot of compliance that goes along with that, harder to have a meaningful impact. So it's regulation plus compliance that has to come together.
Do you see any industries that are maybe a bit behind in terms of strengthening their compliance part for regulation in order to take on these products, in order to make their streamline the business a bit more? Do you see some a bit behind the times, whereas some people, especially I suppose to focus on in the financial world because of all the scandals, they've really ramped up their compliance offerings. So do you see other industries?
I think it's probably less. Some industries are highly regulated, right? Whether it's financial services or pharmaceutical companies or, certain kinds of energy companies. So I think there are definitely sectors that are more regulated than others. I think generally what we would see is that it has more to do with the size of the business. Obviously larger companies typically have whole departments that may be focused on compliance. Smaller companies, more difficult for them to fund that kind of activity. So in fact, a lot of what we do in our business is we try to help those smaller companies by producing products that are sort of streamlined for their needs. So a quick example is we are a large provider of audit software where government and corporations use our software to help them do internal audit and maintain sort of an audit stream within their businesses. And we just launched this new product called Teammate Express. The name of the core product is Teammate Express, which is designed for smaller audit departments. So it's in the cloud. It has simpler requirements and, of course, a lower price. And that's a perfect example of you have to, tailor something specific to that segment. Otherwise, very difficult for them to do anything but Excel spreadsheets to keep track of things. So I do think size has more of a determinant around how people comply than perhaps just the industry that they're in.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
That was Nancy McKinstry, Chairman and CEO of Wolters Kluwer.